Joe Biden just made his biggest goof up yet, one that could have guaranteed Donald Trump wins next week's American election. Biden called Trump supporters garbage in a blunder that sums up exactly the problem with America's left. As I said last night, the president has wanted to get out and help campaign for Kamala Harris, his vice president. Harris's team has been going, no, stay home, Joe. But he couldn't help himself, too proud, and gave an interview today and blew the joint sky high. Until then, Kamala Harris had actually had probably her best day in the entire campaign. And I was thinking, wow, hang on, could she actually win this? She had some good poll numbers today. She spoke in Washington before the biggest crowd have seen her draw. And her speech was very strong, even though I thought it was built on a giant lie that Trump was the new Hitler.
We know who Donald Trump is. He is the person who stood at this very spot nearly 4 years ago and sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol to overturn the will of the people in a free and fair election. Donald Trump intends to use the United States military against American citizens who simply disagree with him. We are not a vessel for the schemes of wannabe dictators.
Now, I think all that's dangerous and divisive nonsense, but you can see it was pretty strong. And what's helped Harris make this case is that foul joke that a comedian told at a Donald Trump rally at Madison Square Garden a couple of days ago. A joke mocking Puerto Ricans, just when Trump needs to win Latino votes. Now, as I've shown you, the joke, in fact, bombed with the Trump crowd, but Harris has been milking it as proof that Trump is a racist, a man of hate.
There's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah, I think it's called Puerto Rico. Okay, all right, okay, we're getting there.
As I showed you, the crowd didn't like it, but this was hurting the Trump campaign, and you can tell because Trump today at his rally got a Puerto Rican supporter on stage to tell him he was actually great.
The people of Puerto Rico trust you and we have high hopes. As many Americans, we need this man back in the White House.
Trump then called up another Latino, Republican Senator Marco Rubio, who then broke the news. Joe Biden had just gone nuts.
But I have breaking news for you, Mr. President. You may not have heard this. Just moments ago, Joe Biden stated that our supporters are garbage. Are garbage. He's talking about the Border Patrol. He's talking about nurses. He's talking about teachers. He's talking about everyday Americans who love their country and want to dream big again and support you, Mr. President. And I hope their campaign is about to apologize for what Joe Biden just said. We are not garbage.
And it was true. Joe Biden has been losing his grip so badly that he was sacked as the Democrats' candidate, had now destroyed Kamala Harris's campaign as well.
Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is just supporters.
Now, in every way, this was devastating for the Democrats. They've seen this horror movie before. When Hillary Clinton lost to Trump 8 years ago after also trashing Trump voters, showing all the arrogance of the left.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. Right? The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
So you guess what's going to hurt most. I mean, is it a comedian at Trump's rally calling Puerto Rico garbage, or President Biden himself calling half the American voters garbage for liking Trump? But what's even worse for Harris is that Biden said out loud what Harris's whole campaign has just been implying over the past week or two, attacking Trump as the new Hitler. That's already suggesting his voters are Nazis, and it sums up the contempt and the arrogance of so many of the modern left. You even had Harris's campaign, her own running mate, Tim Walz, likening Trump's Madison Square Garden rally to a rally at the same venue in 1939 by Nazi supporters, fascists and ethnic Germans.
There's a direct parallel to a big rally that happened in the mid-1930s at Madison Square Garden. And don't think that he doesn't know for 1 second exactly what they're doing there.
Well, two can play that game. I could point out that where Kamala Harris spoke today was where the Ku Klux Klan held a rally in 1924. Coincidence or deliberate? Yes, Joe Biden, he just ran with a Kamala vibe, but said out loud that Trump voters were trash. And in doing that, he exposed the hypocrisy of Kamala Harris, who was calling Trump today a wannabe dictator, a petty tyrant wanting to take away all American rights, and then claiming it was actually Trump who was spreading hate and fear and division.
It is time to turn the page on the drama and the conflict, the fear and division.
And then along came Joe and turned Harris's big day into a total disaster. Joining me from Los Angeles is Sky News host James Morrow, now part of the team over there covering the election for us. James, great to see you. I'm sorry to have you so late or so early, whatever it is. James, Biden has since said he misspoke. When he said garbage, he just meant the comedian, not all Trump supporters. Is that going to save the Harris campaign?
Well, I don't think so because, you know, we both know, Andrew, there's a great rule in politics, and that is when you're explaining, you're losing. And what's happened today? Well, it went from Donald Trump having to go and explain away that comedian that he had at the rally who gave Kamala Harris and the Democrats so much fodder to now Joe Biden and the Democrats having to explain away Joe Biden's own gaffe. And the way I kind of feel like it is here, Andrew, is that Joe Biden says what the Democrats are thinking. He's kind of like the Democrats unfiltered. So when he goes and says, all Trump supporters are trash, everybody on the right is trash or garbage, well, that's what they actually think. And so it just takes away from the whole idea of, unity and joy and togetherness that the Kamala Harris campaign tries to project.
Well, it's funny, when they keep saying, it's true. His one lands, whereas the comedian, this idea that Trump is a fascist, normally fascists are proud of it. They say, we're fascist, we're National Socialists, we're Nazis, but Trump denies it. So some fascists there. Look, until then, though, Harris has had a strong day, hadn't she? What did you make of her big speech?
Well, look, the weird thing about the speech was that it was pitched as this great sort of unifying speech, and yet the entire speech was just simply obsessed with Donald Trump. And what would Donald Trump do if he comes to office? Trump has an enemies list. Trump would do this. Trump would do that. Trump would politicize this and that. But, we still hear very little about actually what the Harris campaign will do. We hear very little about what she would do to actually unify Americans. And this is a great problem. It's the same thing we always see. We see it in politics in Australia. The left, the right thinks the left is wrong. The left thinks the right is evil. And that's the great danger, I think, is that if Kamala Harris does get over the line next week, and there is every possibility she does, then we will have a far more divided nation than I think you would under Donald Trump.
Look, I totally agree with you, the mixed message. The first 6 minutes of her speech were entirely about Trump being the new dictator, and the rest was half and half, half about her and half about wicked Trump. But the thing is, I think it was based on nonsense. I think it was contradictory. I thought it was mixed messages, but I did think it sounded powerful and she seemed assured in giving it. Now, we have been assuming that Trump is in the lead, but today after that speech to a very big crowd, I did wonder whether this race is much closer. What's your gut feeling?
Look, my gut feeling is that this is a very close race. I do not think it's necessarily going to definitively fall Donald Trump's way. I know that the polls suggest that. I know that if you look at the early voting trends, that suggests it. But the other thing, though, I would say, Andrew, is that right now, I think almost all votes are pretty much baked in. So even if Donald Trump has this spectacular sort of, or Kamala Harris has this spectacular sort of speech and rally, now, it's not necessarily going to move the needle that much. Really, at this stage, it's about the ground game and it's about getting out the vote. And that's where I think we're going to wind up seeing the result of this. It's not about, her giving a really powerful speech at the end, because everybody knows who she is. Everybody knows who Donald Trump is by now. They've priced these things into their voting equation. I don't sense there are very many undecided voters out there.
And just finally, James, just quickly, what is Kamala Harris thinking about her boss now, her old boss?
Well, I can't imagine all the thoughts are that pleasant because, Andrew, let's not forget, this is not the first time that we've seen in this campaign Joe Biden do something, say something that winds up throwing Kamala under the figurative bus. You remember a few weeks ago during the disaster relief in North Carolina, and Joe Biden got up and for the first time in his presidency entered the media briefing room at the White House and got up and said, "Oh, Kamala Harris, she's been with me every step of the way of my administration, helping me with the legislation, the policies, the plans, and all of that." And, everybody looked at it and said, whoa, this is just totally destroys her ability to, run away from that record. So this is not the first time this has happened, because I think that the theory is that Joe Biden wants to be able to say on some level there that he was the only president to defeat Donald Trump at an election. He wants that to be his legacy, having been shunted aside by the Democrat establishment.
A Freudian slip then, this mistake, a Freudian slip you're suggesting. James Morrow, looking forward to your reports from over there. Have fun. Thank you so much for your time.